Have you ever wondered if maybe, just maybe, you've already healed more than you think? Not because the pain disappeared, but because something inside you changed so quietly you didn't even notice. Healing rarely announces itself. It doesn't arrive wrapped in light or music. It moves like dawn, slowly, gently, turning the night into morning without asking for permission. And one day, you simply wake up and realize the darkness doesn't feel as heavy as before. Carl Jung once said, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." What if the pain you've been trying to escape was never a punishment but a doorway? What if the silence, the loneliness, the moments when you thought you were falling apart were the exact moments your soul began to rebuild itself? You see, healing isn't always about smiling more or forgetting the past. It's about remembering differently. It's the soft courage of choosing peace when your heart still trembles. It's the quiet decision to stop running from yourself and instead meet the person who has been waiting on the other side of your suffering, you. But here's the truth most people miss. Real healing doesn't look like what the world calls progress. It's not about appearing strong, productive, or happy. It's about the invisible victories, the breath you take instead of the argument, the forgiveness you offer instead of revenge, the moment you realize you no longer need to prove your worth. So if you've ever wondered whether you're still broken, or if you'll ever feel whole again, this message is for you. Because the signs of your healing are already here, hidden in your silence, your patience, your calm. You just haven't recognized them yet. And once you begin to see them, everything changes, because healing doesn't shout, it whispers. And those whispers are calling your name right now, waiting to be heard in the stillness of your own soul. There are moments in life when everything feels strangely quiet, too quiet. You wake up in the middle of the night with a feeling you can't explain, as if someone just whispered your name in the dark. You check your phone, your messages, your door. Nothing. And yet something inside you knows that something is shifting. Maybe it's in the dreams that repeat themselves, the ones that feel more real than waking life. You see the same place, the same face, or hear the same sentence that echoes for days. It's time. You try to shake it off, to rationalize it, but the feeling lingers like the faint scent of rain before the storm. Or maybe it's in the ordinary moments, when a song you haven't heard in years suddenly plays at the exact moment you were thinking of someone you lost. When a stranger says the very words you needed to hear. When your body suddenly tightens, your chest grows heavy, and you don't know why, but later you find out something happened, miles away, that your soul somehow already sensed. We call it coincidence. We say, "That's strange," and then move on, pretending not to notice that the universe has been speaking to us in whispers. But deep down, you do notice. You felt it during those moments when your intuition screamed while your logic stayed silent. You've seen it in the patterns that keep repeating until you finally pay attention. It's as if life itself refuses to let you ignore the lessons you were meant to learn. Carl Jung believed that nothing truly happens by accident, that every event, dream, and emotion carries a symbolic message from the unconscious, a sacred dialogue between your soul and your destiny. And yet, how often do we dismiss those signs as imagination, or worse, madness? Perhaps that's the true pain of the modern soul. We've become fluent in noise but illiterate in silence. We can read screens but not our own dreams. We know how to chase goals, but not how to listen to the whispers of our inner world. That's why healing feels so confusing, because we're trying to fix what was never broken, instead of understanding what our pain is trying to tell us. Think about it. Every time your heart races for no reason, every time you feel an ache that medicine can't explain, every time you sense something off before it happens. What if those were not random signals, but messages from your deeper self? What if your body and soul have been speaking to you all along, and you've just forgotten their language? You see, the signs are subtle, almost invisible. They appear in moments of fatigue that have nothing to do with sleep, in tears that fall for no apparent reason, in that sudden burst of peace that arrives after days of chaos. They come as symbols, numbers, dreams, déjà vu, even songs that carry hidden meaning. They're not there to frighten you, but to remind you you are being guided. Every ache, every silence, every pause is part of a sacred conversation between your pain and your becoming. The universe doesn't shout. It moves through the details of your daily life, waiting for you to notice the patterns. It's not punishment, it's preparation. And maybe that's why you've been feeling this strange mix of exhaustion and awakening lately. Because the soul, before it heals, often trembles. It dismantles what no longer serves you, so you can finally hear what's been calling you all along. So the next time you feel something unexplainable, an emotion that rises from nowhere, a sign that appears too many times to be random, don't rush to silence it. Ask yourself, what if this is not a coincidence but communication? Because what if these signs are not coming from outside of you at all? What if they're coming from within, from the part of you that already knows you're healing, even before your mind dares to believe it? There comes a sacred turning point in every soul's journey, an invisible threshold where something deep inside whispers, enough. It is not shouted, it is not planned. It's a quiet realization that the things you once begged for no longer hold power over you. This, my friends, is the first hidden sign of healing, when you stop chasing what was never meant to stay. For years, you may have been haunted by unfinished stories, people who left without explanation, opportunities that slipped through your fingers, moments you replayed until they lost all meaning. You searched for closure as if it were buried somewhere outside of you. You wanted answers. You wanted justice. You wanted to understand why. But the universe, much like the human soul, does not deal in straight lines. It speaks in circles, spirals, and seasons. Carl Jung once wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." What he meant is this: as long as you chase what has already served its purpose, you are running from the lesson hidden within it. The people who left, the jobs that ended, the relationships that crumbled, they were never punishments. They were mirrors. Each one carried a reflection of something within you that needed to be seen, felt, and finally released. Think about it. Every person you've ever loved became a teacher, whether they meant to or not. The one who abandoned you revealed your fear of being alone. The one who betrayed you exposed your struggle with trust. The one who stayed but never truly saw you showed how you had forgotten to see yourself. When they disappeared, they didn't take your worth with them. They took the lesson that was complete. At first, it feels like loss. The silence after their absence can echo louder than their presence ever did. But over time, something miraculous happens. You wake up one morning and realize you didn't think about them today. You walk past a place that once hurt, and your chest stays calm. You stop waiting for the apology, the explanation, the redemption arc, and for the first time, you feel light. That is the soul's way of saying you have healed more than you realize. Because the deepest closure doesn't come from others, it comes from understanding. When you stop bleeding for what no longer exists, when you stop rehearsing pain that has already played its part, you cross from survival into wisdom. In ancient mystic teachings, from the Desert Fathers to Eastern sages, there is a shared truth: attachment is not love. To love is to bless without binding, to appreciate without possessing. What binds you to suffering is not what left, but your resistance to letting it go. As the Buddha taught, the root of suffering is attachment, but Jung expanded that idea in the modern world. He believed that letting go is not rejection, it is integration. It's not about erasing memories, but about absorbing their meaning until they no longer wound you. When you no longer chase, you stop moving in circles. You begin to walk a spiral path, upward toward consciousness. You begin to understand that everything that left your life did so to make space for something that could not enter until you did. This is why ancient initiates spoke of sacred emptiness. They knew that true healing requires the courage to be empty, to make peace with the space between endings and beginnings. It is in that space that your next destiny quietly unfolds. The silence you once feared becomes sacred ground, and the loneliness you cursed becomes holy preparation. So if you've stopped texting the person who never replied, if you've stopped explaining yourself to those who don't listen, if you've stopped begging the past to return, you have already stepped into your higher self. You are no longer chasing shadows. You are walking with light, and when you do that, life begins to respond differently. Doors that once refused to open now do so effortlessly. The energy that once drained you now flows back as peace. You stop searching for proof of your healing because peace itself becomes your proof. That is why Jung called this transformation the reconciliation of opposites. It is the moment when pain and understanding coexist without conflict. You no longer ask, "Why did this happen to me?" but rather, "What did this awaken in me?" And that shift, so simple, so profound, is what turns wounds into wisdom. This first sign, though invisible, is unmistakable. You stop chasing the things, the people, the moments that no longer match your vibration. You start attracting instead of running, responding instead of reacting, trusting instead of grasping. That's when the soul begins to rest, because healing isn't about forgetting those who hurt you. It's about thanking them silently for the part they played in your becoming. It's the recognition that they were never meant to complete your story, only to help you discover that you could write your own. And when that realization finally takes root in you, you stop waiting for someone else to close the book. You turn the page yourself. That, my friends, is the beginning of spiritual sovereignty. If these words resonate with the quiet part of you that's been yearning for understanding, then take a moment, breathe, and let this truth settle. You are already healing in ways you cannot yet see. And if this message feels like something your soul needed to hear today, remember to like this video and subscribe, not just to stay connected, but to become part of a community of awakened souls walking the same path of quiet transformation. Because here, in this circle of light, we remember together what the world has forgotten, that healing is not the end of pain, it is the beginning of truth. And somewhere within that truth lies the next revelation waiting to be uncovered. There was a time when I thought healing had to look miraculous, loud, visible, celebrated. That's what I was waiting for. The grand moment when everything inside me would finally make sense again. But it didn't happen that way. It began on an ordinary morning, so quiet that I almost missed it. I remember waking up before dawn. The air was cool, and the first light was just beginning to stretch through the curtains. I sat at the edge of the bed, exhausted from another night of replaying memories I swore I had already let go of. There was a letter on my desk, one I'd written months earlier but never sent. A letter filled with everything I wanted to say to someone who had already left my life. For weeks, I had convinced myself that sending it would finally bring me peace, that closure required words, explanations, and acknowledgement. But that morning, I didn't feel the urge to send it. I didn't even feel anger or sadness. I just felt still. So I took the letter, opened the window, and watched as the wind lifted the pages from my hand. They floated down slowly, twisting through the light until they landed somewhere beyond the garden fence. And for the first time in years, I didn't run after them. It was such a small moment that no one else would have noticed, but something deep inside me shifted. It was as if my soul whispered, "You can let go now." The days that followed weren't suddenly perfect. I still felt lonely sometimes, still wondered about what could have been, but the pain wasn't sharp anymore. It was soft, like a scar you've learned to trace with tenderness instead of regret. I started walking every evening, no destination in mind, just letting the rhythm of my footsteps drown out the noise of my thoughts. And something strange began to happen during those walks. I started noticing signs. At first I thought it was just coincidence. A feather landing near my shoes, a song playing in a passing car with lyrics that spoke the exact words I needed to hear. A stranger smiling at me at the moment my chest felt heavy. Each time I brushed it off, until one evening something happened that changed the way I saw everything. It was late, and the sky had turned deep gold before fading into violet. I took the longer path by the old church, the one I used to avoid because it reminded me too much of endings. But that night, something drew me toward it. There was no one there, just a flickering candle someone had left on the steps, its light trembling in the wind. And suddenly, I felt a wave of emotion rise from nowhere. Memories, voices, the weight of years collapsing into one silent moment. I fell to my knees, not out of despair, but surrender. I didn't pray for answers. I didn't ask for things to go back. I simply said, if I'm meant to heal, teach me how. And then there was this overwhelming calm, a warmth spreading through my chest like sunlight after a storm. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't even spiritual in the way I expected. It was peaceful. Later that night, I wrote in my journal something I'd never dared to write before. Maybe closure isn't about getting answers. Maybe it's about realizing you've stopped asking the same questions. From that day forward, I started to see the world differently. The person who had hurt me no longer felt like a villain. They were simply someone walking their own path, carrying their own pain. I no longer wanted an apology. I wanted understanding, and that understanding didn't come from them. It came from within me. It's strange how healing hides in plain sight. Sometimes it looks like washing the same mug every morning, but feeling gratitude instead of emptiness. Sometimes it's sitting alone at dinner and realizing you're not lonely, you're free. Other times it's the way you look at your reflection and no longer see someone broken, but someone becoming. One evening, months later, I walked past the same church again. The candle was gone, but the memory of its light stayed with me. I realized that healing doesn't erase pain. It teaches you how to hold it differently. The weight doesn't disappear, but your hands grow stronger. Since then, I've met many people who've carried their own silent wars, and almost all of them shared something in common. They thought they were still wounded, when in truth, they had already begun to heal. They just didn't recognize the quiet progress happening inside them. Maybe you've felt that too. Those subtle shifts that don't seem like much but somehow make life softer. Like the moment you forgive someone without telling them, or when you stop checking if they've seen your message, or when you laugh, really laugh, and realize it's not forced anymore. That's the mystery of healing. It doesn't shout, it hums. It doesn't arrive as fireworks, but as dawn. It's not the absence of pain, it's the transformation of it. So if you've had a moment like that, something small, quiet, but deeply meaningful, a dream, a sign, a sensation you couldn't explain, I want to hear it. Share your story in the comments below. Tell me about the signs that made you believe healing was already happening in you, because your experience might be the exact message someone else needs to hear tomorrow. And who knows, your story could be the light that guides another soul back home. After all, maybe the truest proof of healing isn't how you rise, but how gently you begin to walk again. And somewhere, just beyond that gentle step, another revelation waits, hidden in the silence you've just learned to trust. There is a sacred stillness that appears in your life the moment your soul begins to heal. You notice it first in small ways: the pause before you speak, the deep breath before you answer, the strange calm that replaces what used to be an instant burst of anger or fear. It feels subtle, but it's one of the most powerful transformations you can ever experience. It's the second great sign of healing. You no longer react from your pain, you respond from your peace. You see, Before the healing truly begins, most of us live like mirrors, reflecting everything that touches us. Someone's words slice through your calm, and you bleed emotion. A rejection brings back 10 old memories of abandonment. A single moment of silence from someone you love reawakens every fear of being unseen. You think you're reacting to what's happening now, but in truth, you're reliving what happened then. Carl Jung called this the possession of the unconscious. It means your past, your wounds, your hidden shadows are the ones holding the steering wheel of your life while you believe you're in control. You're not responding to reality. You're responding to your history. But the moment you begin to heal, the moment your consciousness expands, something changes. There's a pause. A sacred, invisible gap appears between what happens and how you respond, and in that gap lives your freedom. Imagine this. Someone says something that once would have cut you deeply, an insult, a judgment, a dismissal. You feel that familiar sting rising in your chest, that heat rushing through your body. But then you stop. You breathe. You notice the feeling, but you don't become it. You hear the voice inside say, "I could explode right now, but I don't have to." That moment, that pause, is the proof of healing. It's not that you've stopped feeling, it's that your feelings no longer control you. That's what Jung meant when he wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Healing makes you conscious. You start recognizing when you're about to fall into an old pattern, and you choose differently. It's a quiet kind of mastery. No one may ever see it, no one may applaud you for it, but inside, your entire reality begins to shift. Because the energy you once used to defend yourself now becomes the energy you use to understand yourself. And understanding is the birthplace of peace. Now here's a simple but powerful practice to help you access that state. It's called the sacred pause. Whenever you feel triggered by someone's words, a situation, a thought, don't try to suppress it. Don't judge it. Simply breathe in deeply through your nose and silently say, "This is my past speaking." Hold the breath for a second, and as you exhale, say, "But I choose presence now." Do this once, twice, maybe 3 times. You'll notice something extraordinary. The emotion begins to loosen its grip. It's as if the storm is still there, but you've stepped out from under the rain. That's what real healing looks like. Not perfection, not numbness, but awareness. The awareness that you are no longer a slave to your wounds. You can still feel anger, but you express it with wisdom. You can still feel pain, but you don't drown in it. You can face conflict and not lose your balance. That is not just healing, that is evolution. Ancient mystics understood this long before psychology gave it language. In many traditions, from Sufism to Zen, the moment between stimulus and response was seen as sacred. It was the place where the divine entered, the instant where your higher self could speak louder than your fear. Jung's entire philosophy of individuation is built upon this idea that every human being must learn to recognize their inner reactions, not to reject them, but to integrate them. Your anger, your jealousy, your sadness, they are not enemies. They are unspoken messengers of your unmet needs. When you listen to them without letting them take control, you transform them into allies. So here's what happens over time. You start to notice that you no longer argue to win. You listen to understand. You no longer react to defend. You respond to connect. You no longer let the energy of others dictate your inner world. You become the calm within the storm. And when that happens, people around you feel it. Your energy changes rooms before your words even do. Your silence becomes more powerful than their noise. Your peace becomes contagious, because healed people move differently. They don't seek validation, they radiate assurance. They don't chase love, they embody it. Every time you choose to respond instead of react, you reclaim a piece of your soul that trauma once took. And little by little, those pieces form something whole. That is integration. That is the awakening of your true self. So the next time life tests your patience, remember, the test isn't meant to break you. It's meant to reveal how much you've already grown. The universe is always measuring your readiness, not by your achievements, but by your peace. And if these words have found you today, it's not by chance. Maybe you were meant to hear this reminder that your calm is not weakness, it's wisdom. Your stillness is not indifference, it's strength. And your silence, when chosen consciously, is one of the loudest proofs of your healing. You've already begun mastering one of the greatest spiritual arts, responding from love rather than fear. But there is another sign, one that goes even deeper than this calm awareness. It's a sign that very few people ever recognize, because it doesn't just change how you respond to life, it changes what you create with it. And that, my friend, is where the true alchemy of the soul begins. If this message resonated with you today, if you felt that quiet spark of recognition within, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to this community. This circle exists for those who are not afraid to look deeper, to transform quietly, and to walk the sacred path back to themselves. Because the next revelation will show you how creation itself begins the moment you stop escaping your own soul. There is a moment in every soul's journey when the noise of the world fades and what once felt like chaos begins to sound like music. It doesn't happen suddenly. It arrives softly, like light slipping through the cracks of a broken heart. It's the moment you realize that your pain no longer consumes you. It inspires you. That your scars are no longer something to hide. They've become your language. And that your past, once a prison, is now your palette. This is the final sacred sign of deep healing. You begin to create instead of escape. For so long, your energy was spent running, from memories, from mistakes, from the echoes of things you could never control. You filled your days with distractions, noise, endless doing. But beneath all that movement was one unspoken truth. You were afraid to sit in silence because silence would make you feel. And yet, one day, you did. You stopped running. You sat down with your own soul and listened. The silence didn't destroy you. It revealed you. Carl Jung called this sacred transformation individuation, the process by which the fragmented parts of the self, light and shadow, divine and human, finally reunite. It is not about becoming perfect. It is about becoming whole. And when that happens, something miraculous unfolds. The energy you once used to survive becomes the energy you use to create. You start painting again, not to escape reality, but to translate it. You write words that carry the weight of everything you've lived. You speak with clarity instead of bitterness. You forgive because your soul is too heavy with love to keep carrying hate. That is the alchemy of spirit, turning suffering into sacred expression. It's what the mystics meant when they said, "Out of darkness, light is born." Every wound becomes a window through which grace can enter. Every ending becomes a beginning written by wiser hands, your own. In this state, life itself becomes your canvas. You begin to notice beauty in places you never looked before, the way sunlight falls on the floor, the quiet hum of the world before dawn, the tenderness in a stranger's eyes. You stop waiting for miracles because you realize you have become one. But here lies the mystery only few ever discover. Creation is not about producing, it's about participating. It's when you understand that the same intelligence that spins galaxies is breathing through you right now. When you paint, write, speak, forgive, or simply breathe consciously, you are echoing the act of creation itself. Science calls it resonance. Mystics call it divine union. Jung called it the self, the archetype of wholeness within every human being. And Christ called it the kingdom of God within you. When you reach this point of healing, the boundary between the creator and the created begins to dissolve. You no longer feel separate from life, you feel part of it. You understand that your thoughts shape form, your emotions shape energy, and your presence shifts the vibration of entire rooms. That's not philosophy, it's physics. Energy follows awareness, and awareness is what you are. So the question is no longer, why did this happen to me? The question becomes, what will I create with what has happened? Because the truth is, pain never meant to destroy you. It was the fire that forged you into something divine. Without it, you would never have learned the sacred art of transmutation, turning fear into faith, wounds into wisdom, and endings into beginnings. And if this message has touched something inside you, if these words resonate with the quiet truth you've always known but never spoken, pause for a moment. Breathe deeply and let gratitude rise from the center of your being, because this space, this community, was created not for profit but for connection. Every word here is shared from passion, not gain. So if this light has reached you, if you feel that spark awakening in your heart, please like this video and subscribe. Not just as an action, but as a gesture of energy, an offering of unity. Each subscription strengthens this community of souls. Each like is a silent thank you that keeps this work alive. Together we are building a temple made not of stone, but of understanding. Now let this truth sink in. Healing was never about becoming someone new. It was about remembering who you've always been, the creator disguised as the creation. You are not the storm. You are the sky that holds it. You are not the wound. You are the hand that heals it. You are not the shadow. You are the light learning to embrace it. And once you understand this, once you feel the pulse of the divine moving quietly within your every breath, you begin to see the world differently. Every sunrise feels like it's written for you. Every conversation carries divine timing. Every silence holds an answer. Because the final secret of healing is this: you never had to chase the light. You were the light, forgotten, hidden, but never lost. And just when you think this is where the journey ends, another mystery begins to unfold, one so subtle, so profound, that even Jung himself called it the sacred paradox of awakening. The moment when peace no longer feels like an arrival, but like a calling, and it's in that calling, soft, timeless, eternal, that the last revelation patiently waits to be revealed. Maybe you didn't even notice it happening. The quiet mornings when you felt calm for no reason, the moments when you caught yourself smiling again, the nights when you no longer needed answers to fall asleep. That is what real healing looks like. Not dramatic, not loud, but steady and sacred. And now, as you look back, you realize something extraordinary. Every sign, every silence, every heartbreak, every small act of courage was leading you here to this very moment of awakening. Carl Jung believed that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And that is what these 6 signs have been trying to show you all along. You are not broken. You are becoming. Every lesson, every ending, every tear that softened your heart was never meant to punish you. It was preparing you to see yourself not as a survivor of life, but as a co-creator of it. The truth is, every soul goes through the sacred spiral: fall, break, awaken, rise. We descend into the darkness, not to stay there, but to bring the light we find back to the surface. You were never meant to be the same after the pain. You were meant to be reborn through it. Think of how quietly that transformation began. You stopped chasing those who couldn't see you. You stopped needing to explain yourself to those who never listened. You stopped running from your shadow and started embracing it. You began to pause before reacting, to breathe before speaking, to create instead of escape. These are not small changes. They are divine revolutions disguised as ordinary days. That's how the universe heals through you, silently, patiently, beautifully. And maybe that's why you're here, listening to this now. because something inside you recognizes the truth of these words. You are not the same person who began this journey. Your pain has turned into wisdom. Your silence has turned into strength, and your soul has begun to remember what it always knew. You were never searching for light. You are the light, learning how to see itself again. Every time you choose peace instead of chaos, you become a messenger of healing. Every time you forgive, you open a door for someone else to forgive. Every time you love again after being hurt, you participate in the greatest miracle of all, transformation. And that is how the divine moves through us. Not in miracles that fall from the sky, but in hearts that choose to rise one more time. So maybe your healing was never about you alone. Maybe it was meant to ripple outward, to your family, your friends, your community, even to those who will never know your name, but will feel your light. Because when one soul awakens, the whole world shifts a little closer to grace. And now I want you to take a breath, slow, deep, honest. Feel the air move through your chest, the rhythm of life still pulsing in you. This is proof. You are still here, still becoming, still unfolding. Your story is far from over. In fact, it's just beginning. Before you go, I want to invite you into something beautiful. If this message spoke to your heart, if it reminded you that you are not alone in your healing, please like this video and subscribe to this channel. This space exists not for profit, but for passion. Every word you hear here is crafted with love and faith for you, for this community of souls walking through the same sacred journey of awakening. Your support keeps this light alive. Each like, each subscription is not just an action, it's an act of connection. Together, we are creating something rare in this world, a circle of truth, compassion, and spiritual strength. And if you feel called, leave a comment below with your name and city. Tell me where you're watching from, and I'll mention some of you personally in the next video, because no matter where you are, whether it's a small town, a big city, or a quiet room at night, you are part of this journey now, part of a living movement of souls, remembering who they truly are. You see, healing isn't the end of suffering, it's the beginning of sight. The eyes of your heart are opening again. You are learning to see life not through pain, but through purpose. And when you start seeing through the eyes of purpose, nothing is ordinary anymore. Every conversation becomes a prayer. Every moment becomes sacred. Every breath becomes an act of creation. So as we close this chapter, remember this truth. You've healed more than you realize. You've grown beyond the version of yourself that once thought peace was impossible. And now the universe is quietly preparing your next step, one that will unfold with the same grace that brought you here. Because healing is not a destination, it's an awakening, and awakening is only the beginning of everything your soul came here to do. You are not the wound. You are the light that has learned how to shine through it. And somewhere, in that silent, sacred glow, your next revelation is already waiting.